quite interesting when we were talking the other day, just in terms of lending in South Australia, because I know that, you know, we've gone through, banks have changed everything for people wanting to get home loans, car loans, any kind of loan at the moment. How have you guys found the banks and the lending side of things?
Just taking longer. We've had we've had a few deals that have fallen over that have been quite strange, where, you know, a buyer legitimately thinks that they won't have issues getting financed, and all of a sudden they're being told by the lender, sorry, we're not going to give you the money anymore. Yeah. Or, you know, we've had other examples where people rushing to the market to buy property because they've been told that their lending criteria is going to change in 30 days. So they've got to go and lock a property away under the current pre-approval. So it's been kind of mixed bag. And then our commercial property market here, obviously money being so cheap, the commercial market is just like super strong at the moment. You know, getting commercial loans at under 2%, people are loading up on commercial property.
Yeah, right. Are they locking in the 2% for decent periods of time, or are you expecting
it? Like I think you can lock in at like 1.8, 1.9% for 5 years, something like that on commercial loans. So
wow.
Yeah, it's
wanting
interesting.
to invest in property buy in South Australia, apparently.
Yeah, commercial properties, and like so commercial stuff, it's still been pretty good.
Yeah. How have you found the rental side of things?
I think for us, like our pain is probably yet to come there. Like where, you know, JobKeeper wraps up pretty soon. So largely our portfolio, we're managing about 3,000 residential properties, and we haven't had issues there with our arrears are under 1%, vacancies under 1%. So we haven't really been rattled there yet. There's been a lot more work in terms of, like when the government came out and, you know, was speaking of the subsidies, everybody decided that they should just get a rent decrease just because they'd heard the government say that. So that put a lot of extra work and pressure on us. You know, we rent out to a few AFL footballers down here. It's like, just because your salary's gone from 400 to 200 doesn't mean you kind of get a rent reduction, you know? So, yeah, that's kind of been interesting.
Yeah, I can imagine. So the fear factor, and it's interesting to hear that when we went into lockdown, I don't think I'd really thought about that when we went into lockdown in Melbourne, that would affect directly the Adelaide market. Because how many cases have you guys got at the moment?
I don't think we've got any on record at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah, none. So we're certainly not having, communicable based, infection occurring at the moment. So I think we had a few issues earlier on in the piece, but then, since then it's been very much under control.
Yeah, right. Amazing how it affects people's, I think, more than the headspace rather than the actual results. I mean, you know, if you've got 0 cases, even if we're up at 700 and it's escalating, it doesn't actually affect South Australia. Borders are closed, people can't go over there. But, you know, it's amazing how people's headspace can really dramatically shift their thinking and what they're considering doing, and do we sit and wait?
Yeah. But I think that, you know, Australia is largely driven by the Melbourne-Sydney effect. Like when people think of Australia, if we're talking property prices, it's always a Melbourne or Sydney indicator. If it's an economy, you know, employment, it's always Melbourne and Sydney. So I think that the other states do fall kind of victim to, okay, well, whatever's happening in Melbourne or Sydney, that's probably going to happen to the rest of us. So it's funny how people think. But largely, I'd have to say, I mean, volumes are down 20-25% here, but overall we've been pretty blessed. Hasn't been catastrophic thus far.
Yeah. And just to give people perspective, Phil, we'll start to jump into it, and if people join in as we go, they do. Do you want to give people a little bit of an understanding of you and your business? And for those of you who jumped on, I sent round, Phil did a series of webinars at the start of COVID just talking about behaviours, and I sent that around to everybody, and I encouraged everybody to join, and I personally loved it. There was a lot of ideas out there, you know, that you were talking about, quoting different agents, how different people operate, and I thought it was great, hence asking Phil to come back and chat with us. we talked a little bit the other day about how there's this expectation, and you know, there's really popular words at the moment. You know, you've got to pivot, you've got to shift, you've got to adapt. Everyone's using these really, you know, big words at the moment. And one thing we talked about, we've obviously got metro and regional in here today, which brings about an interesting discussion. But, you know, today isn't about, I didn't ask Phil to jump on, and, you know, we're so grateful, Phil, for you just jumping on and having a bit of a chat with everybody here. But today wasn't about how to pivot and adjust and how to, you know, overcome COVID. That's not the context of today. It's about remembering what real estate is, because I think for the metro guys, you know, you can pivot all you like right now, but you still can't show someone a property. So that's not what today is about. Phil's just an exceptionally successful business person, exceptionally successful agent. And I think that if anyone can, you know, if everyone can pick up one or two things that they can put into their day or their business or their attitude, then I think everybody will be, you know, a better agent, better person for it. So, Phil, I'll hand over to you if you want to have a bit of a chat about your background and who you are and your business.
So I've probably, I know I've met certainly a few people on the call today, whether that be kind of, speaking at a few seminars, or I think I've even been out to an office or two over the years. But I've been in real estate now for about 20 years. So half of that time I spent as a salesperson, so purely for a decade, just selling. And then we started Harris Real Estate 10 years ago. We started with 5 staff, like the dynamics of the business today. So we're an independent, we're not a franchise. We've got 5 offices across inner metro Adelaide. So we're very much city fringe, probably specialising in more of the middle to higher part of the market for Adelaide. So we started 2010. Today, we've grown. We're about 175 staff across the group. Last year, I think we did just under 2,000 sales. We have about 3,000 properties under management. That property management business has been, you know, a combination of acquisition, and we've had a very large organic growth with that as well. And so from an external perspective, yeah, we've had a lot of growth, and, you know, people talk about Harris as being a success story, but there's certainly been some really challenging times along the way that maybe I can share some of those today, because I think that whether you're confronting COVID or whether you're confronting kind of personal issues, the issues aren't going to cease. You know, we're dealing with, you know, COVID-19 this year. Next year we might get a bit luckier, but the year after something's going to come up. You know, we've dealt with these sorts of things for a long time. It's just that this one seems to be a little bit different. And so, yeah, so we've had some really good growth there across Harris. We've focused on some really, really simple things that I'm happy to share today. But really, Charlotte, I'm open to having a conversation. And I like what you said. It's one thing to say to pivot, and you kind of bring in the motivational speaker who says just kind of fix your thinking and just pivot. Well, that's great, but if you can't show a buyer for a property, and if you can't legally go outside your home to go and list it or sell it, that's a different conversation. But in saying that, there are definitely some things that we can all be doing, and it's probably better we have more of a conversation about those. So happy to go anywhere you like today, Charlotte. And for the guys online as well, any questions, please, maybe zip them through to Charlotte or in the chat box, and let's hit them out. Let's have a good chat.
Yeah, beautiful. There's a couple of things I'm going to jump into, and guys, if you want to, raise your hand or send them through in the chat box. It's not a formal, there's no slideshows, it's none of that. It's just literally discussing what people are doing. You know, obviously you guys in Adelaide, following on from what you were saying earlier, even though you're not affected by COVID, your market has gone up and down quite a bit over the last 6 months. So you've had complete halt, you've had lack of confidence. Yep. What have your teams been doing to overcome that on a mental side, I guess?
Yeah, so as I said, when COVID first broke out, it was like our business got cut in half. So we thought it was the end of the world, like literally it was going to be the end of the world for our business. We thought we're just not going to be able to exist if this continues on for much longer. But now our marketplace is obviously very different to what you guys are are going through right now. Probably the best kind of analogy that I could maybe share with you guys where you're at right now is not necessarily a COVID analogy, but some of you might have seen this, some of you might not. But 2 years ago, I went through a shocking court case here in South Australia, which I've never actually, we're not, are we recording? Yeah, we are recording, so I won't mention any names. Went through, just don't distribute this publicly, all right? So, some of you might have seen it, some of you might not. Anyway, and the reason that it relates and how it affects COVID is that sometimes just stuff happens that is way out of your control and you can't do anything about it. And so we had a salesperson that joined us. They brought their database over of a couple of hundred contacts. Anyway, it ended up being a 5-year legal dispute for the employee that joined me. And in the end, I decided to jump in and save the employee that worked for us. And I wrote a check for $1.2 million in legal fees to cover this particular issue that occurred. And it was literally, I can honestly say, one of the worst. I've been blessed. I haven't had major death around me with family members or friends thus far, touch wood, in my life. But it was honestly the worst experience probably that I've been through in my life. It was just one of those shocking things. And I've been speaking to a number of friends and agents in Melbourne who are kind of going through a circumstance at the moment. And how it relates is that when things are out of your control, the only way that I could possibly deal with going through that kind of challenging thing was there were so many things out of control, but how do you do it right? Does that make sense, Charlotte? How do I get to the end of the process and go, you know what? I didn't have control over this, or this, but how can I just control what I can control? And how do I get to the end of it and say, you know what? Didn't really go according to plan, but I'm proud of the things that I did do. How do I not waste the opportunities that are in this? And even though it's shocking and it's bad and you don't like it, there are always things that you can do. And so leading into COVID for our team this time round, when our business, we do between 150 and 200 sales per month. Straight away that month, we drop back to like 50, 60, 70 sales, which some people might sound like a lot of sales, but when you've got a business like ours, it was like major haircut. We thought it was the end of the world. And so I went back to going, hey, okay, so 2 years ago, we went through kind of a different sort of a COVID, what we went through, but we focused on what we could do. And that was my conversation with our team, which is, I don't know where this is going to go. I'll be totally honest with you. I don't know where it's going to go, but there are some things that we can do. And I'm not talking about just positive psychology of guys, it will be okay. Let's all get together. Let's all hold hands and, kumbaya. It's all going to be awesome. But there are some things that you guys have got to do on a daily basis to hedge our bets, to mitigate against what might be coming. And that came back to the basics, Charlotte, for if we're talking from through the lens of a salesperson, there are some fundamental things that salespeople can still be doing, even if you can't go and physically meet a person right now. There are definitely things that people can be doing to keep moving forward, because the reality is this market will change. All things do pass, right? So the market is definitely going to change. That was my message for our team. And I don't know how long it was going to be, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years. I don't know, but you've got to be ready for the other side of this. And that was kind of the psychology that we've tried to focus on, which is not to pitch a rosy kind of all will be fine, no worries, but just confronting the brutal facts of the situation and what can we do. That's been the main conversation that we've driven in our organization.
Yeah. And I think, 2019 for us, moving away from COVID, 2019 was pretty rough for a lot of people in the market in Victoria. Did you guys have a tough 2019 comparatively, or were you pretty strong in 2019? How was last year for you guys?
It's like, Adelaide just, it's such a unique marketplace. We're never really bad, but we're never really good, and maybe that's a great thing. You guys have had kind of your years of 8, 9, 10, 12, 13% growth over the last, 3, 4, 5 years, whatever it might be. We've never had that level of growth. We've only ever had about 1.5% capital growth year on year for the last decade, but our transactions do vary from time to time. So 2019 was not a tough year, not a great year. It was just a solid year.
Yeah, so the South Australian market's probably a bit more consistent to what Melbourne is. So The
Very
waves, I
consistent.
think, yeah, I think the waves in Melbourne, you feel them so much more. It's amplified. So when it's good, it can be really good. Like you can sell a house, you stand there and say, yeah, no worries, there's 50 people there. Just give me your offers and whatever the best one is, we'll take that. It's easy.
Yeah.
It's obviously there's hard work, but to get that deal done, it's easy. You know, you just got to push people as far as they can go, and people will go pretty high. But then on the flip side of that, I think when things are hard and difficult, like at the moment, our regional officers, for example, they're struggling to get stock. And it's, you know, with Warrnambool, everyone's issues are different. But Warrnambool has a property, and because of private inspections, they had so much inquiry. Matt, the director down in Warrnambool, had to do 62 private inspections. And so for him, he said, I can't complain because I know a lot of officers can't do anything. But an entire week was eaten up of our time doing inspection after inspection, because you've got to disinfect, you've got to do all the right things, you've got to follow protocol. And he said, so that's an issue because there's so many buyers, they just can't get stock. So a lot of our regional
Yeah.
are struggling to get stock. And because people are less inclined to put their properties on the market, their numbers they're not going up. They are reduced. Like we did the numbers about a week or two ago, Amy, and some areas in regional Victoria are consistent. Some have done a little bit better, but majority of them have taken a dip as well. And our regional officers, obviously, at the moment, unable to operate. It's, I think we're in a really intense confronting drop in the market. And I think that's where it's almost like we feel like we're getting somewhere and then it's taken away again. And then you feel like you're getting somewhere and then it's taken away again. And I think after 2019, when it was a tough market, there are a lot of people who I guess are kind of struggling to hang in there. And I know that the headspace that goes along with those peaks and troughs, it feels so intense and all consuming at the moment. But I guess if you're in a more intense drop in the market, what would you be doing with your days, with your time? How would you be overcoming it, not just for you, but also for your teams?
Yeah, I think that, and it's always the law of, kind of relativity, right? We've all been used to, I know 2019 was a tough year for, Melbourne and certain other markets, but, I guess compared to a lot of other places in the world, the Melbourne market, the Adelaide market, the Sydney market, they're all really, really good markets, but it's what we get used to that makes it challenging. So for me, it always comes back to what number one is getting real about the situation, but getting very clear on the things that you can be doing. And that's where people struggle, I think, where, conversations about, like what we just said then, I can only do one-on-one, what do I do? I can only do one-on-one appointments. Well, there's no point us dwelling about kind of how bad it is or what the government's doing, because they're the current set of rules that we are playing. So what are the things that a salesperson can do? Now, I know irrespective of whatever restrictions have been in place right now, right? I know 100% if you're a salesperson, you could definitely be going through and reconnecting with every single person that's ever bought or sold a property for you right now. Like you could definitely be doing that, guys. Second key thing, you could definitely be reconnecting with any person that's ever referred you a property before. And so, what are you doing for those people that have referred you? There's probably never, ever, ever been, and this would literally be true, there's never, ever been a better time to actually get your business plan correct. So whether you're a salesperson or a business owner, but for the first time, actually get yourself organized and don't feel guilty if you're not pumping out your 20, 30, 40 calls a day, but are you getting your database sorted? Are you getting your prospecting plan organized and getting your categories and getting your tags right in your database and actually using this time to build scale so that when you actually come back and the market reopens, which it will, you're actually in a better position because you've got your business more organized and more structured. And so they're all of the things that we saw our top salespeople here, Charlotte, basically our top 4 or 5 guys, not to overcomplicate it, but they just sat there and got on the phone and had conversations and reconnected with not everybody, but they had an order of priority of the most sensible people to go and re-engage with, which was they had a clear plan to re-engage with anyone that's transacted with them before, anyone that's referred them property before, and every single past appraisal that they've ever done, making sure that they have their contact details correct, making sure they have their database correct, and just getting some basic hygiene around the data. And so they're the things that I would be focusing on. And you said, if I'm not prepared to get my business plan right and actually get myself structured and organized better, or if I'm not prepared to do those prospecting activities, well, then you do have a problem, because I'm not sure what else you can do, because other things you physically cannot do. So we can only focus on what we can do.
Beautiful. Amy's asked here, a few of our officers are struggling with their competitors not doing the right thing and losing business because some other competitors. So what we're allowed to do in Victoria, we've got rogue agents who are out there just kind of breaking the rules, and it's making it really hard because our guys are all doing the right thing and following the rules, and then they're losing a listing to another agent because the agent goes, don't worry about it, we'll just do it on the side. So how would you suggest that they overcome this with the client, but also with the mental dialogue and frustration? Good question, Amy.
Well, yeah, really good question. Unfortunately, COVID, no COVID, good market, bad market, there's always going to be jerks in real estate. And for some reason, there seems to be lots in real estate. So I don't think we're ever going to change that. I can only speak from, I can't give you advice. I can only speak from what I would do, right? It's just never the wrong time to do the right thing, right? So I'm certainly not going to say, yeah, we should be getting out there and, playing by the same set of rules, which is now we've all got a responsibility to do the right thing. But this doesn't really appease or make you feel good. But my philosophy is I'm just always a long-term player, which is, okay, they might jag an extra. I always think like this. And it happens in this time it's COVID. I have people in our marketplace doing this stuff all the time as well. But you know what? They might jag a few extra listings now during COVID. I'm always thinking, how are you going to compete with me in 10 years' time? How are you going to compete with me in 20 years' time? You might steal a few here and now, but I'm here for the long haul and I'm going to do it right. And because I do it right, that's why my phone rings pretty much every single day. Someone saying, hey, Phil, you don't know me, but can you please come and sell my home? Because I've built a reputation for doing the right thing. So I think now's the opportunity to double down on doing the right thing, building a better business, getting around your people, helping people out. And people will remember you in 6 months, 12 months, 2 years' time that you reached out and you were caring and you were helpful and you did do the right thing during this time. So it's kind of my take on it. I don't know if that helps.
No, it's good. It's absolutely. I think the other thing that I have, the other thing that I've experienced, I think, within the group is that everyone sort of is busy or taking time off and saying, you know what, I'm just going to do the mornings and I'm going to spend the afternoon, or I'm going to take the morning off and I'm just going to do a couple of hours. If you were in a position where you weren't able to do everything, how would you structure your day, and what would you, I guess, how would you hold yourself accountable? What would your expectations be of yourself in terms of outcomes? Not just, I'm going to work for 3 hours. Would you be setting yourself goals, and if 3 hours or 5 hours, I have to do X, Y, Z, or how would you be structuring your time?
Well, firstly, we definitely found, so when we went into the South Australia lockdown, so we had that period for about 2-3 weeks, there was definitely a trend of working restricted hours, not the normal long hours that we would have in a work day. But just to clarify that, so I'm not advocating everybody to work half days or anything like that, but we definitely found that the agents that did better were working in spurts, meaning that we would try to get some regularity in the time that they actually started their work. So whether that be 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, a lot of our guys broke it up to, rather than exercising first thing in the morning, like going to the gym and that sort of stuff, that's off the table for, I think, for a lot of you guys on the call anyway, but they would work, walks, So they would have, so our guys, what really worked, this wasn't just us, a heap of people around the country working in spurts of going, okay, I'm going to get my first call session done between 8 and 9 or 9:30. Then I'm going to have a morning tea break. Then I'm going to work again, but I'm going to use exercise as a midday break. Then I'm going to come back and do some more work. But basically our guys were kind of working anywhere between 8 and 9 through to 5, but with a few more breaks than what they would regularly have, because their actual daily workflow was restricted. So normally, the normal flow of a real estate agent is get in the office early, get your prospecting done. Then in the afternoons, we're on the road seeing people face to face, doing appraisals, showing buyers, doing all that sort of stuff. Now you can't do that. So some people don't have the capacity to sit there and make 100 calls every day. That's going to drive you nuts. So the things that I think that you need to do is, number one is get yourself a set of soft KPIs and hard KPIs that you can achieve every day, right? So the hardline KPIs, you need to work that out for yourself. But what are those daily amount of call metrics that you want to make? Is it 15, 20, 30 calls that you want to make? Now, you're probably not pulling appraisals right now because you can't get out and see people, but you might have another metric, which is how many CMA reports can you send out on a daily basis? How many thank you cards and notepads can you write on a daily basis? So a couple of hardline KPIs is what you should have. And then the other KPIs that we had for the guys was more from that self-care space, which is saying, what are some other soft KPIs that we can achieve on a daily basis? Which is, number one, you guys have to make sure you're making use of that daily exercise of getting out for an hour a day or whatever it was. Did they get their exercise in? Did they get 8 hours of sleep per day? Did they do something social, whether that be a cup of coffee online or taking some time out or whatever it might be? But it was more of a less intense day, but still having some structures and some numbers that they needed to hit and getting that regularity. So that would be the recommendation of knowing what that is on an individual basis. But for our guys was basically try and hit those 20 calls. You know, our top guys are still making 50, 60, 70, 100 calls per day, but not everybody wants to do that. Getting out some form of marketing, whether that be mail or via digital, taking a good break for lunch and getting out and exercising, come back and working on their business. And the other thing we try to get our guys doing every single day as well is committing to 1 hour of education per day. So think about that. Is there 1 hour of upskilling that you can do right now, whether that be getting better at using, Zoom, whether it be your database, whether it be other tech platforms that you're using, whether it be just getting better computer skills, like downloading using a Udemy course to understand your MacBook better or something like that, just to be more efficient in that day. And I still wanted our guys to be knocking off by about 5 o'clock at night and then disengaging and spending time with the family. I think kind of what happens in this lockdown for all of us, like everything molds into one. There's no work, there's no home. It's like this massive long cycle of everything becomes work and everything becomes home. And so there's no high quality work and there's no high quality downtime, which is why our brains don't get the rest and then it starts playing tricks on us. So I think you've got to try and get some separation to, I'm in work mode, now I'm in rest mode. Like turn your phone off, engage with your family, go for that walk, do something fun, but don't try and have it all just blurred into one big work and home life. They were the things that we focused on.
I loved a couple of things you just said there, and I saw a couple of people writing it, that around the KPIs is not about doing appraisals. It's actually about how many CMAs can you send out. And I think
it's dumb thinking. Yeah, you can't do appraisals right now, right? We have the exact same thing, but like there's no reason why you can't send out 15 RP data marketplace reports per day. There's no reason why you can't update data. There's no reason why you can't go through every single past client right now and reach out to them and double check, have you actually engaged with them on social media, doing a social media invite on every single. So there's so many things that you can be doing right now, right? However, people are still fixated on what we can't do. But the good news is everybody's playing by the same rules relatively. Your competitors can't do it either. So make the most of this opportunity now.
I think there's another thing there, I guess if I was an active agent today, what would I be doing? I think you're right. I'd be trying to get between 5 and 10 CMAs out a day. I'd be having cards. I'm a big fan. I used to write so many cards. My handwriting would be terrible by the end of it. But I would just be sitting there on the phone going, hey, Phil, thanks so much for your time today. Lovely to chat with you. Let me know if you need anything. Have a great time. Pop it in an envelope. Go down to the post office, part of your exercise for the day. Pop it in the mail. People are liking it. It might get there a week or two later, thanks to Australia Post at the moment in Victoria. But it's nice to actually send something so that they don't forget about the conversation they've just had. And I think that's one of the key things at the moment, that if you have a conversation, what's going to trigger them to think about you again? Is it that they get a CMA 3 hours later and go, oh, that's right, that was really helpful? or do they get something?
If you wrote 10 to 15 personal cards right now, it will have a magical effect on people, because people don't forget a feeling the way that you're feeling. You know, you have a phone conversation with somebody and then write a nice card saying, "Hey, Jenny, it was great chatting with you. Glad to hear that you and the kids are well. You know, keep fighting the good fight. Looking forward to seeing you for a coffee soon. All the best, Phil Harris, Stockdale Lego," right? People will really remember that. And now's the time to be doing that.
And I think, it is finding those little personal touches. I don't know, how many people have a target around how many CMAs that they send out each day during lockdown? Everyone's looking blankly, so I'd say no one. So I would be putting that into my business today. How many people are sending stuff out to their clients, follow-up cards or emails or anything like that after each call today? I know that when we're in the office, there's certain behaviours, but I feel as though one thing I've experienced is it's almost like we've gone, well, we can't do all of these things, so therefore I probably can't do it. And then you almost talk yourself out of the things that you can do. So we're not being productive with our time and making the most of each conversation that we're having.
Yeah, I just try and have a simple goal of going, what are the core categories in your business? Which is, and if you're not sure what they are, I've got a few for you, but past clients, top referrals, past appraisals, just work on those three groups, and then have 3 or 4 metrics on a daily basis. It might be, I just want to make 20 calls per day. I want to send out 10 CMAs and I want to send out 10 thank you cards per day. And if I can get that done by lunchtime, I'm a long way. I got to tell you, you did those 3 things, guys. You are ahead of 95% of your competition in Melbourne right now.
Yeah. Phil, can I ask a question, please?
Sure.
Given that, COVID has made us all have to have a look at our business and do different things whilst we've been in lockdown and employ different strategies and do different things. Once you come out of COVID, have you kept in place any of the things or any of the philosophies you put in place during COVID? Have you kept those within the business, or have you just gone back to basic, well, this is what real estate was before COVID, let's just get back into doing the good old stuff again? Or is there new stuff that you've learned through COVID that you've continued on to employ outside of COVID?
Oh, there's definitely things like we, in many ways, COVID's been a blessing for certain business operations and the way that we've operated. We've certainly realised that we can run leaner, in terms of what we do. There's the technology is here to stay for the better in terms of like Zoom meetings and those sort of things. We feel the structure of the way that our salespeople run, that's different now as well. So we normally have a full monthly team meeting where we used to get everybody together. Now we don't do that. We might get together bi-monthly or quarterly now, but we'll still get together monthly via Zoom. And so the productivity has actually gotten higher. And I don't want to say this to kind of sound like we're gloating, but our sales business is up by about 50% now on this time last year. Like, our business has gone far better during this COVID than what it was kind of pre. Not saying it's because we're so good, we've had a growing sales team, but what we've learned is that it's there are far more things that we're doing more efficiently now because we've been forced into it because of what's occurred. So yeah, there are a few things, and we've actually compiled a list. I'd have to find it. I know we came up with about 5 or 6 items of things that were here to stay post-COVID. So yeah, I think that's the opportunity as business leaders right now. And we also had different pay structures with salespeople who were still on that kind of the old debit credit. We made some changes there. We've sorted out entitlements and those sorts of things with leave, with a whole range of, so we tidied up in a whole heap of HR issues as well. So I hope that kind of covers it. If there's anything else specific, yell out.
I think that's one of the big things. I remember, Phil, when you talked about it, I actually created KPI sheets after your webinars at the start of it, and part of it was around what you've talked about, and one of the things that I've said quite a few times through this, and I hope everybody has done it and is continuing to do it, and if not, start now. What do you want to keep? What can you not wait to get out of? So what are the things that you're desperate to get rid of, go back to? And then what's sitting in the middle, and what's a better way of doing it that's kind of a hybrid? Like, if I had said to our group 12 months ago, everyone, we're going to jump on a Zoom meeting, we're getting Phil Harris, who's going to do a half an hour Q&A with our group, you all would have looked at me like I had two heads, because that just wasn't a thing 12 months ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, we can have a couple of conversations with Phil. He jumps on here, we have a bit of a chat, and all of a sudden we've learned something about, you know, what we can do. And I think, you know, there's a couple of takeaways there that I would absolutely be putting into my business today if I wasn't already doing it. But I think, yeah, it is a case of, what do you want to keep doing post-COVID? What do you want to go back to doing that we used to do before, which, you know, obviously human interaction, face-to-face appraisals, all of that kind of stuff. And then what is sitting in the middle that you realise there is probably a better way to do it. You don't want to go back to what it was, but you're not quite sure what that looks like. And focus on those things. And you should be doing that on a regular basis. I'd be doing it now, and I'd be doing it again in 4 weeks, 6 weeks. And then I'd probably be doing it, you know, as we come out of it, maybe 2-3 months later, sit down, get your whole team to sit down and work out what worked, what didn't work, and what's somewhere in the middle that you need to work out a better way to do it based on your experiences. Because if we don't learn anything from this, then it's just been a really crap, hard year for absolutely no benefit.
What the other kind of exciting thing I found from COVID, guys, is 2019 for me anyway. It's kind of been building, but I'm not sure if you guys agree, but 2019 was like the year of, I hate the dirty word, disruption. Like, real estate agents, we're all going to lose our jobs. Like, tech companies are going to get rid of us. We don't need agents anymore. Has anyone spoken about getting rid of agents during COVID? Like, it's gone. It's like majorly during COVID, people have realized they actually need us. Does that make sense? You know, so before it was all like, oh, we're just going to get rid of agents, and a computer or a robot or somebody's going to take us over. It's become really clear that we're an integral part of this process. So that's something that has excited me out of COVID, to go on the other side of this. Yeah, let's not forget what it was like during COVID. You guys really needed us to make this process happen.
Absolutely. Jim's just asked, do you have minimum standards and expectations on the salespeople in the office?
The answer to that is yes, we do. However, it's relative to the individual. So it's not based on, like, we have very successful middle-aged women in our organization who do not make 30 prospecting calls every morning before 11 a.m. You know, the most effective prospecting strategy for them is dropping their kids off at private school and working the car park and having a coffee with the girls in the Lululemon for 45 minutes before they come into work, and they'll pick up 1 or 2 listings in the car park. I want them to go and do that because that's their business model. Does that make sense? It works for them. But if you're a 22-year-old kid joining me, yeah, you want to make sure that you get those 30 connects. You want to make sure you've got 4 face-to-face appointments every afternoon. And you want to make sure you get those KPIs entered into our system, and you'll be held accountable to that. So everybody's got to swim their own race, but it's relevant to the individual, right? Now, there are some minimum requirements to that. So if you're not writing $200,000 per year, so if you're not profitable to the organization, you're going to be on the watch. But outside of that, largely, we have recommendations, which is, so we have people in our organization writing $2 million per year, and they're ferocious. They're just looking for any angle. What can they do to get better, grow it, you know, aggressive. So I'll coach that person very differently to, you know, some people I coach. If I get that kind of, you know, some middle-aged females in our organization, they've been in real estate for 20, 30 years, very successful in their own right, probably, you know, doing, you know, 20 to 30 sales per year, but not massive, but very successful. They're great for the brand. Coaching for them would be very different, which is, how can I help them just build maybe a better listing presentation? How can I help them to understand their data a little bit better? That's going to be far more valuable than me saying, you need to be here, banging on the desk, making calls at 8:30 a.m. That's not going to work. So yeah, I do have minimum standards, but they vary from person to person.
And also on experience as well, I think, and outcomes. If someone's doing a couple of sales every year and that's kind of it, and it's costing the business money rather than not. I'm assuming that there would be different structures to those people and accountabilities. But I think at the end of the day, as a salesperson, you know, salespeople naturally are great with people, not so great with processes and accountabilities. So it's a learned behavior, and I would be using this opportunity. You know, I think the most successful people are the ones that identify what they're not great at and either work on it or get someone to do it for them. And if you know that after 6 months in COVID situation, you're still not posting stuff on social media properly, get someone to do it for you. If you're not entering your data correctly and your database is still a mess after the last 6 months, if you haven't cleaned it out, then work out the best way to clean that out. Because if you're not going to do it, well, I should rephrase that. If you were going to do it, I expect you would have done it by now, because you would have stepped up and gone, you know what, this is a major issue. My database is all over the place. I can never remember who's who. I can never market to people. I get so many rejection emails. If you haven't spent this time so far really going through client by client by client by client, touch base with them. Hi, just touching base. I haven't spoken to you for X amount of time. If you're not doing any of that stuff now, might I suggest that if you don't find someone to do it for you or work out a better way of doing it, the future's not going to look much brighter. And it just takes for a couple of people in your area to, you know, I said it yesterday and I'll continue to say it, a database not worked is just a phone. It's just a list of names and numbers with people who don't really have a connection to you. And there's nothing worse than knowing that within your database, the buyer and the seller are both sitting in your database and you didn't get a glitch of either of them wanting to either buy or sell.
So I think on that note, swim your own race and just work out a couple of metrics for yourself.
Yeah.
You know, like, don't overcomplicate this. Try and get some basic things right, which is, you know, start your work at the same time. Have a couple of categories that you work on every single day. Have 2 or 3 key metrics, which is number of calls, CMAs sent, handwritten cards sent. Make sure you really get some high quality soft metrics in your life right now, which is you need to be kind to yourself right now. You need to be getting 8 hours sleep. You need to be eating high quality food. You need to be getting out, getting exercise. So there's got to be 3 or 4 soft metrics that you make sure, because you can win those soft metrics every single day. There's no reason why you can't be winning those. And if you're prepared to do that and understand that, yeah, this is tough, but it will change, I don't see why you can't be setting yourself up to be in a good position for when the tide swings. And when it swings, it will swing quick, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Another question, sorry, Phil, if you don't mind.
No, sure, Mark.
With COVID, you know, so many of it, well, we're all forced to be working at home or from home, et cetera, et cetera. And that's all departments of their business, whether it's property management, sales. Coming out of COVID, have you changed and gone, hey guys, I'm happy for you guys to work remotely. Cool, no drama. Or are you saying, no, I want you back in the office. I want to see you, touch you, feel, all that sort of stuff. Has anything changed from that perspective with you and your business?
Vast majority of our team actually wanted to come back, you know, like the whole, like even these models that keep getting thrown around, which is, you know, keep 100% commission and just, we'll give you a laptop and a web connection and, you know, you can do your own thing. Like I just don't see that as being a model of the future. You know, we're 175 staff. The vast majority of those were craving for human interaction and wanted to come back. So it wasn't a major issue to get back. But what it has done, it's changed our philosophy to giving more flexibility around working environments. So for example, working mums, or, you know, of giving people some more flexibility to actually, so I think our property management team now have 1 or 2 days per month where they can work from home. And, you know, so we've just changed the rules a little bit to go, you know what, it's actually now a better model to give these people flexibility, which is, our business is very much built around outcomes now. So we have a net promoter score for every property manager, for every landlord and every tenant has a property manager, a net promoter score. every portfolio is tracked, obviously, for number of losses and number of gains. And so ultimately, if a property manager, in my opinion, for where we're going with our business, if you've got great net promoter scores, your landlords and your tenants, they love you, and your portfolio is growing and it's not losing, I don't need to see you sitting at your desk all day, every day to know that you're doing a good job. Because if you're not, we're going to find out pretty quickly. But even if you offer people to work from home, you'd be surprised. People love the interaction and the engagement. And that's what human beings are all about. That's what Harris is all about, is about creating a positive environment where people can come together and become the best version of yourself. And I think that's what COVID has highlighted, which is those businesses that can foster that culture of genuinely helping and caring for people. They're going to want to have people to come back into those environments quick, smart, you know?
Beautiful. I'm going to ask one very quick last question and then we're going to let you go. Thank you so much. Jim,
Sure.
just said, what advice would you give a new starter in real estate? Top 3 tips.
New people starting out. So I think first and foremost, it would be to get a proper business plan set up. So don't figure this thing out as you go. Start with the blueprint and the end in mind. And so if you need that, zip me an email and I'll zip you one through to you. But actually have a look at what the Holy Land looks like, to go, okay, great, here's a proper plan of what a high performer would be doing so that you understand what it takes from day one. Secondly, massive focus around you've got to get data and you've got to get people. So how do you do that? You know, colleagues past open homes, colleagues old databases, picking a service area, reverse directories, whatever it might be. You've got to really get that database right. And then third thing is you've got to find an appropriate mentor, a mentor whose business you want to model. And so respectfully, if you're a 24-year-old kid starting in real estate today, your principal might be 56 years of age. Their behaviors, although they might be successful, they might not be mirrorable behaviors, meaning that their business is purely referral based. They don't work a database really well. So although they're successful, that's not a model that you can duplicate if you're starting in real estate today. Does that make sense? So you need to make sure that you're building a set of behaviors that are tangible for the type of business that you are creating. So number one, get a really clear business plan in place. Number two, you've got to get 1,000 contacts as quickly as you possibly can. And number three, find like an awesome mentor who you can rip and duplicate from super quick. So you're not trying to figure stuff out. Like everything, no matter how successful you're trying to be, the pathway has already been walked. So don't try and figure it out. Just get there as quickly as you possibly can. And if you do that in about a 12-month or 2-year period, you'll be super successful.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much for today. That was a brilliant session and I think everyone got something out of it. So thank you so much for that. We've got thank yous coming through. Really appreciate it, Phil. Appreciate your time and the amount of conversations that we've had in the lead up to this as well. Really appreciate it, and we're probably going to hit you up for some more online training.
Good idea. Yeah. Please do. Thanks.
So guys,
Thank you, Phil.
Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And I sincerely say, hang in there. It will pass, but just keep doing what you can do. And if you are struggling, reach out. If you want to give me a call or zip me an email, whatever you need, always happy to help you guys. But take care, thinking of you. All right. Cheers.
Thank you, Phil.
Thanks so much.
Bye. Ciao.